When life gets overwhelming, do you default to powering through or do you quietly give up on your goal? What if neither of those is the only way? In this episode, Reflect, Adjust, Progress, we're going to talk about how to shift course without losing sight of your bigger vision and how to move lightly through your busy seasons. Sound like something that you need? Let's do this. There's two conversations that I've had recently that keep popping back into my mind. And one conversation, I had a friend basically say, "Hey, things are easy for you because nothing hard ever happens to you." And the other conversation, I had met a friend at a coffee shop that I hadn't seen in quite a few years. And we were talking, and I realized in our conversation how far I had come since we last talked, that my life wasn't actually any less overwhelming. It's just that I have found a way to move through that overwhelm much more lightly. So I hope that I'm transparent about some of my struggles with y'all. But in case of not, we've had a pretty smooth transition into the school year in the sense that my kids are now in second and fourth grade. So drop offs are a little bit easier. They know the routine of school. They're more independent. They can remember which special is which day and take that responsibility. So in a lot of ways, it's been an easier start to a school year. On the other hand, my son has had lots of nosebleeds, and we're trying to get to the root of that because they were going for so long that, he'd wake up with a nosebleed and an hour and a half later, we would be late for school because we hadn't been able to get it under control enough to feel like we could leave. His blood work came back and he has some elevated levels that suggest that it's taking his blood longer to clot than it ought to. So we have to make an appointment with a hematologist. And we've also seen an ENT about the possibility of needing to cauterize some things, but we can't cauterize things until we know that we're going to be able to stop his blood. And so, there's a lot of moving parts there. For my daughter, we are going through testing for dyslexia. She also has ongoing GI issues. So we are seeing a specialist in another city about those issues because we just still have tummy troubles. So all of these things have been going on with my kids. I personally have challenges. I deal with self-doubt. I deal with just being tired. I have a friend going through a really awful divorce that I want to be able to be there for. A sister with a brand new baby, and she's navigating all of those things. And another sister who just had her gallbladder removed and is looking for a new place to live. And while I feel really fortunate that many of those things are not necessarily my issues, they are issues that people that I love are navigating, there's still a lot of responsibility and just muck there that I'm sifting through. So I want to share that I do have challenges. I have, hard conversations with people at work, and I have people that don't like me. I am a pretty normal person in terms of the challenges that come in and out of my life. One of the things, though, that has really struck me is that over time, through mindful planning and holistic goal setting, through rituals that help ground me, I have been able to navigate overwhelm much more lightly. And so today I wanted to talk with you all a little bit about goal planners and what an amazing tool they are to help us reflect, adjust, and progress on our goals. Clear back when I was first getting into doing a lot of this work, I had discovered Cultivate What Matters power sheets. And if you aren't familiar, I will put a link in the show notes because I do think that they're beautiful and there's a lot that I love about them. And in a nutshell, they, have some worksheets that lead you to guiding your goals. And then once a month, they have some check-ins for you. And these power sheets were really important for me in terms of creating a rhythm to my own journaling practice and in practices of reflection. And I think that I'd always thought about journaling as having a diary and reporting what I did every day. And that just seemed wildly boring to me. And so I had always struggled with journaling, but I do really appreciate self-reflection. But getting prompts that really encouraged me to want to actually write down my self-reflections was challenging for me. And so these were really helpful, and they created a cadence or a rhythm to the way that I was reflecting. So a goal planner is a little bit different than maybe your agenda book. And there are a wide variety of goal planners out there. So some are hybrids. So you'll see something like Clever Fox Planner or Moxie Life, where you do have a few worksheets at the beginning that will help you set your goals. And then you'll have some check ins throughout your regular agenda book, in your regular agenda book, kind of checking you in with your goals. Hey, it's the end of a quarter. Let's check in. How much progress have you made? And I really like those combined. Drawbacks to having something that's really hybrid like that is sometimes they don't always go into the same level of depth as a standalone goal planner can, just because they are trying to put your daily rigmaroles with your goal planning and your reflection, and it can just get to be a lot. In fact, I love the Moxie Life system, but I just find their planners to just be a hunk to carry around. I've also found that some people don't want to take to work to throw in their purse where they go to the grocery store with them, something that has all of their reflections and this really personal information in there. And so there are some things that are just goal planners, like the Cultivate What Matters power sheets, or like my own Sense the Possibilities planner and journal. And these are really a place where you do a lot of your journaling. It has activities that get you deep to be able to set your goals. And then they usually have some sort of a check in. So in my Sense the Possibilities planner and journal, you set your goals. There's monthly check ins, there's quarterly check ins, but there's also weekly previews and reviews in there for you to keep you on track on a weekly basis. One of the most surprising things to me when I started using a goal planner and carving out ways of really checking in with myself is that I realized that it wasn't just about thinking about the future, it was also self reflection. I was learning so much about myself. So I would have to ask myself questions like, hey, I keep saying that this is a priority, but I'm not doing it. What's going on here? Let's get curious about that. I started to just be aware of things that I was avoiding in my life, the emotions that I feel comfortable sitting in, the emotions that I tend to avoid. I started to recognize when I was feeling drained of energy and who were the people that I was around, what were the environments that I was in, what's going on there. I started to learn a lot about my own strengths. I started to learn about how my own strengths sometimes bamboozle me. That like it's not just my weaknesses that get in my way. Sometimes I hold so tight to my strengths that my own strength can get in my way, and I'm even less aware of it oftentimes because I hold it so dear to me as a strength, something that I'm good at. And so the process of just having these regular check ins was so important to me understanding myself. It was also really important to help me make adjustments. So, for example, I was talking about our beginning of the school year. I know now that the first 6 weeks of school, somebody is going to get sick. And then it's probably going to move through our family. And so I also know that that means in my September and early October, I'm going to need to have some white space on my calendar because stuff is going to get funky. And it's been so helpful for me to have these processes that over time I've recognized these patterns and then I can plan for these patterns rather than feeling bombarded by it. The other thing is, I think that it's so important for us to make adjustments. And there is this fine line between adapting and pivoting because we've learned something about ourselves and we need to make some adjustments, or life happens, life got lifey, and all of a sudden your priorities changed. Those are really important reasons that we want to adapt or pivot, but it also can help us recognize when we're adapting because we've been bored, or I got distracted by a shiny object, or I'm having a really hard time sticking with a goal for even 90 days. And to just get curious about it and go, well, what's going on here? And so one of the things that I like about goal planners is that they do engage usually in deeper reflection and ask us, what's working, what's not working. And working with clients over time, I've been really aware of times that maybe we resist making adjustments because we feel like to adjust is to fail. So, maybe you start out and you're like, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. And after a little while, you realize, well, I'm consistently hitting 3 days a week, but I'm failing because I'm not getting five. But, prior to that, you were doing 0 days a week. So 3 days a week seems pretty great. And, to ask yourself, is three enough? This is really amazing progress, and is making an adaptation and saying, actually, let's just aim for three now, the healthy thing to do? Or have you just resisted making some changes where you need to make the changes so that you can get to that five? And I think that getting really honest with yourself is this continuous process. There are things where I'm like, oh, I think I understood that about myself. And I'm like, oh, Danielle, get it together, friend. This is what's really going on. I remember a long time ago having a conversation with my therapist and saying, oh, I don't experience fear. It's so funny to me because at the time I was in a high state of anxiety. And yet I saw worry and fear as very different emotions. Fear is like me going on a roller coaster that I don't want to go on. But I didn't see my constant worry as like a low level version of fear. And when I could get honest with myself and go, oh, my worry really is fear about me not being able to control something or letting other people down, or when I could get honest with myself about those things, so much starts to unlock because you understand yourself better and you're better able to make decisions, and you can make those decisions more quickly when we've been honest with ourselves. And so I am a huge fan of goal planners that have processes in place that really help us create cadences and rhythms of checking in with ourselves. And so if you've never used a goal planner, I highly encourage you to. But before I finish out today, I do want to share with you 5 principles that underlie my use of goal planners that might help you out. Or if you've used a goal planner before and it has just collected dust, or you didn't like it because it felt like really rigid. So rather than the cadences and rhythms feeling like a cozy wave, if you will, it instead feels like, oh my gosh, I have to do this like hyper rigid, disciplined sort of stuff. I think that these principles might help you. So the first thing is to see your goal planner as a mirror, not a map. So often I think that what people do is they use these goal planners, they create their goals, they map it out into, their 90-day program. And then they feel like it is their job to follow this map. And if they don't follow it perfectly, then they are lost. And I think that for me, rather than viewing the planner as something that is showing me my path really clearly, I think of it as something that's showing me really clearly. And that by understanding me, I can actually make the adjustments, the decisions moving forward towards the thing that I value, towards the goal that I am working towards, because I have the capabilities within me to figure out the how as we go. And some of that how can be emergent rather than fully planned out. The other thing is to see reflection as a ritual, not a report. So this isn't about like tallying wins and losses, but is an opportunity to notice patterns, to notice emotions, to notice meaning, and to really create healthy inner dialogue that is curious. Asking yourself, well, what mattered most? What was misaligned? Why did this feel misaligned? What's happening there? What surprised me this month? All of these things, I think, are really healthy ways to start talking with ourselves. And I think goal planners can aid that. The third principle that I like to think of is that adjustments are invitations, not punishments, not failures. So changing direction isn't a failure. It's a way of honoring what you learned And small course corrections or edits or even deletions can be acts of courage. They keep our goals alive, they keep us responsive to real life. But again, I just want to reiterate all of this really only works if you're being really honest with yourself about why you're making the adjustments, and then to see those adjustments as invitations, not punishments. The fourth thing is that goal planners oftentimes make us feel like progress should happen in a linear fashion. And I think that progress is spiral, not a straight line. So it's processes of loops through reflection and adjustment. It's seasonal, it's rhythmic, it's nonlinear. And so where I think goal planners really shine is that there is some beauty in the repetition, in the coming back to, in the circling back to where you've been. And so I like to think of it as spiral instead of a straight line. And then finally, I want to give you permission that if you get a goal planner, whether it's the Sense the Possibilities planner and journal or something else that's speaking to you, that the purpose of this is not to fill it out perfectly or even wholly, but instead I want to encourage you to break the rule to find the rhythm. So it's not about filling out every box and every prompt, but knowing when to cross something out, when to reframe it, when to invent your own ritual, when to invent your own questions to guide you. And I really think that some of the most beautiful moments of growth is when the tool sort of bends to you, not you bending to the tool. And to have that confidence that inside of you, you have enough of the tools that you can interact with the planner in a way that makes best sense to you, and to not feel like there's a right or a wrong way to engage with it. I hope that today has maybe inspired you to keep your eyes out, because we are at a time of the year where, especially in October, we're going to start seeing planners and goal planners, and all that stuff is just going to start popping off. And so to really start thinking about, well, what are the tools that you need as you're closing out this year and inviting in a new one? And how do you want to interact with them? And I hope that you can see how a goal planner is a little bit different than an agenda book, and how using the two together and going really deep can really help you envision your goals, help you adjust, make adjustments, refinements as you grow and learn in unpredictable, spiral, wacky sort of way. And so I hope that this episode has been helpful for you. And until next time, be bold, be balanced, and be well, friends.